The big news in professional wrestling is Hulk Hogan signing with Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. We've got all the facts, we've got all the perspective, and all the analysis coming up this week on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime, which starts right now.
Number one since 1998 on television, ESPN Radio, and the World Wide Web, this is the Pro Wrestling Report with your hosts, the man they call Meathead, Frank Cosentino, and Damian Nelson. Professional wrestling news, opinion, and information from fans for fans.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time for Friday, October 30th, 2009. Damian Nelson sitting here alongside David, Octavius Hero, Octave, if you will, and the man they call me Dad. We are, there's one topic and one topic only, and that is the big news from earlier in this week coming out of TNA Wrestling. Hulk Hogan, now a part of TNA Wrestling, and he's bringing along some friends. We talked about this Tuesday on the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. If you listen live, you got probably one of our best shows that we've done, including a return to the airwaves of Ken Anderson on the Pro Wrestling Report. However, due to some technical difficulties, station's moving. We'll be in a brand new studio next week. We did not have the podcast of that show preserved. But
well, just tell them the truth. Frank hit the switch.
Kaz was even there. He brings this aura with him.
But I mean, the show you needed to hear the show
on,
the show live on the radio or streaming on pwrshow.com, because that's where you're gonna get
That's where you get the hot news.
That's right, the hot news. I mean, we were on fire all night.
I don't know why you wouldn't listen live. Granted, it's late, but what else you do? But let's talk about it. Here's the news. Here's what we know, and here's what our job is. A few days have passed. There are so many wild rumors out there. We're given to you straight from the horse's mouths, if you will. Several different players involved, several different people's perspective as to what Hulk Hogan's role in TNA Wrestling is going to be, including Hulk's very own words of yesterday on Bubba the Love Sponge radio show, which, quite frankly, I was listening to it, and I was shocked and awed by several things that Hogan said, and we'll get into those later. But, gentlemen, here is what we know officially. Hulk Hogan now a part of TNA Wrestling. Dixie Carter and Hogan making that announcement along with Spike TV this past Tuesday, I believe it was. Yes, Tuesday, in New York City at Madison Square Garden. Hogan, obviously, not in the best of ring shapes at this time in his life and in his career. Not going to be wrestling so much with the company, but TNA has not officially defined his role. They have not said what he's going to be doing. There is also talk, that Eric Bischoff will be right alongside Hogan and will be working with TNA on developing a better television product, including Impact, and their extra hours of TV that they get each year with their new contract with Spike TV.
And that's going to be called Nitrous, right?
Nitrous oxide.
There you go.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of facets of this, a lot of things of this, and really the things to discuss is the history of Hulk Hogan, what he has done in the business, what he could bring to the table in TNA, and what he will bring to the table in TNA, and what TNA might need to be a little bit afraid of as it pertains to Hulk Hogan. Firstly, obviously, Hogan starting in WWF in 1979, 1980-ish, then going up to the AWA, where he was then taken back down to New York to work for WWF, won the title from Bob Backlund, from Iron Sheik, Madison Square Garden, 1984, and that
January
was
23rd.
23rd, it was, I believe. That was the birth of Hulkamania. He held that title.
The birth of Hulkamania even happened a little bit before that when he was in Rocky III. He was in Rocky III, and that's the reason why he was let go from WWF and sent down to AWA, because he wanted to do...
Well, he wasn't sent down.
He wasn't sent down, excuse me. He was not kept around.
Vince Sr. wasn't having none of it.
Yeah.
But Hogan was born, Hulkamania was born, and that title reign would go all the way through 1998. Hogan would stay with the company up until 1994, actually 1993, King of the Ring, where Yokozuna beat him after WrestleMania 9, and that would be the last time for a very long time we would see Hulk Hogan in WWE. Actually,
it was
10 years
of
exactly.
Harvey Whippleman, with the Smoky Flash cube. Harvey Whippleman beat Hulk Hogan.
Come on, Kanye, keep the show going.
Not Yoko. Come on.
As far as what we all saw at home, at the first annual King of the Ring, when it was annual, it was
annual
Hogan.
pay-per-view.
Yeah, from Dayton, Ohio, I believe, the Irvin J. Nutter Center.
The Nutter Butter?
I know that. But anyways, and then it was 1994 when Hogan would go to WCW. And as we talked about in the September 22nd edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Express, It is generally our opinion that Hogan made WWF and Hogan made WCW, depending on what your definition of made was. And I still stand very strongly behind my opinion that without Hulk Hogan, those two companies would not have seen the heights that they saw. Now,
Opinion coming.
Now, you are an opinionist.
No, I'm just saying
He's
that,
over there getting hot. Is what he's doing.
that Vince and Hogan together made
Correct.
WWF.
Correct.
And
But the
Hogan
public
did
face
more-
of it was who?
But Hogan did more of it on his own in WCW.
Oh, very valid point.
Alongside Eric Bischoff.
No.
Yeah.
Because Hogan was already established as a main event.
But Eric
king of the
Bischoff
world.
controlled the book at that
No,
point.
he didn't. He wasn't
Well,
the
he
booker
was
there. He was the
creative.
executive vice president who was in charge of signing talent and putting TV together.
Call it what you will. Tomato, tomato.
A booker and producer are two different things.
You know what?
I love it when this happens.
Robert De Niro in Casino wasn't in charge of the
Don't you dare.
casino, but
Don't
he
you dare
was
make
in
such-
charge. He was in charge.
But Bischoff did not write anything. Hogan came in as the Babe Ruth, Michael Jordan, Muhammad
It was
Ali
huge.
of wrestling.
It was huge.
Sure.
And
So-
Hogan even said recently that was significant, and so many people thought he was betraying WWE and WWF, as I
He did.
talked about in this week's radio show as well. And Hogan was making some comparisons to this situation to that situation.
But Hogan did that because the contract or his schedule was lighter, and he got to do more Hollywood films.
Mhm.
And he did Thunder in Paradise right there, in Florida.
I don't know if it can be confirmed or not, but he was still making a pretty penny for those fewer dates and the less.
And Mr.
exposure
Nanny.
in WCW.
Santa with muscles.
He would be in WCW from 1994 to about 2000. Obviously, the big famous incident involving him, Jeff Jarrett, and Vince Russo at that
And to a lesser extent, Booker T as well.
WCW Bash at the Beach pay-per-view, and then a return to WWE, which actually happened in our home city here of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
The Bradley Center.
At the Bradley, so actually that was a return to the NWO.
No Way
That
Out.
was the exactly.
And
It was the return of Hogan, Hall, and Nash to the company. So obviously Hogan has had a substantial impact on the wrestling business. I think you could ask just about anyone in this country, including kids nowadays, who Hulk Hogan is,
And Hulk Hogan, who Hulk Hogan is.
and they will certainly know who it is,
Yeah.
no matter how you say it.
Well played.
So that shows his ability and his influence on the business. Now the question is, how will this translate to TNA? TNA, per Hogan's mouth, has the foundation, has the building blocks set. They just need more direction. And apparently, according to Hogan, in his recent comments on Bubba the Love Sponge just yesterday, Hogan's in charge.
And he's telling everybody that'll listen.
Indeed, Hogan saying on Bubba the Love Sponge, keep in mind him and Bubba great friends, whatnot, but it was unfiltered, and Hogan said that he answers to one person in the company, and that's Dixie Carter. He's coming in, he used this word, he's going to flip that thing, turn that thing over, that being TNA, and his goal is to make it, just like he was significant in WCW, make it the #1 wrestling company in the world. And he is not necessarily concerned with who he's going to step on to get there. He did not confirm what Bischoff's role would be, but did confirm that he's going to be making the decisions. And if the guys aren't going to step up, they're not going to satisfy him. He is going to go ahead and make some changes.
I think Bischoff's going to be the guy in the truck. He's going to be the executive.
Where he should be.
Vice president of production or the producer, and he's going to make that show run smooth. Hogan's going to be there looking over creative. Not that he's going to be, booking the shows. He is still working with Russo and Ferreira. It's going to be rocky.
TNA's they're on a slippery slope. And with the things Hogan said, including going as far to say as, naming some talent, saying he's going to use them, he's going to bait and switch, he's going to do everything in his power to use every bit of them until they're not needed anymore. And then move on to somebody else. Now, again, you can
And that's
think
when he'll bring in the Nasty Boys.
you can
Oh.
think these things.
Dude, if the disciple comes in, I'm done.
You can think these things, but once you say them, it changes things dramatically. And I think TNA should be concerned that the new face of the company, if you will, is
The
saying
same
these
old,
things.
the same old
in
rotten
public.
face
But
that happened.
Here's the thing, though. With Hulk Hogan, he's a worker. He's a, He does everything with a purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
And who knows, maybe now they're already starting to set the storylines where Hogan's coming in and saying, hey, Nash, Sting,
Steiner.
Angle, Steiner, you guys got to pick it up or you're out of here. Maybe he's kind of setting the tone to get the storylines going.
Do you think he's setting the tone or the epitome for another Millionaires Club versus New
No.
Blood type? I mean, type.
Because
I mean,
they just did that with the Mafia.
I understand that.
No,
The Mafia only went 1 year, but if you're saying it just like that Nash, Steiner, Sting, all the old established guys, if you don't do it, these young guys are right behind you. That's the exact same thing.
I don't see it that way. I just think he wants to be controversial. He wants to show everyone that his buddies, nobody's safe.
Hogan also saying that this...
Even though you just said the Nasty Boys are on their way.
Oh yeah, it'll be the Nasty Boys
sorry.
against the Machine Guns at the next pay-per-view.
David's being comedic.
Take them to Pity
Wait,
City.
hold on. I'm willing to bet
No, David.
by the end of the year,
and
the
that's-
Nasty Boys will be in TNA Wrestling.
Both of them?
Yes.
Hogan,
Jerry Saggs and Brian Knobs.
Yes.
Hogan said...
Managed by Jimmy Hart. Hey, Knobs is on the payroll. You watch.
Pity City.
And that's where TNA has to be very careful.
Because here comes
Well,
his
hold on.
nephew.
Do you guys honestly think Hulk Hogan's going to sign a 3-year deal with TNA and not want to bring in his backup?
Well, his backup is Jimmy Hart. All the three of us agree.
His backup
that
is
his backup
Brutus
is-
Beefcake. It's
yeah.
Jimmy Hart. It's
His road friends.
A bunch of has-beens, to be honest
You
with you.
know.
Well, Jimmy Hart's got creative that he can
No,
do.
but
talking
today's
about- you're
audience
talking about
does
Jimmy
not
Hart
and
can-
will not care about those people.
Jimmy Hart can help them with the new theme music.
And that's the point I was getting ready to drive at. All of those people can be
useful.
they can help the product, but we don't need to see them wrestling. And Hogan said that he does not at this point plan to wrestle. I mean, obviously he knows he can't do it so well anymore. Does not plan to wrestle, but this plan's been in the works for months. He admitted that on Bubba as well. His plan's been in the works for months. He's obviously, I hope anyways, been watching the product. When you make such broad statements,
You
I
said he's
hope
been paying attention to the product?
I hope he knows what he's doing when he goes in and starts making these changes, because you can't go in and look at a guy like AJ Styles and say, this is your champion, he's 5'4" or whatever. No,
That's
you can't do
1
that.
foot.
You've got to look at, no, he's 4'5". You've got to be able to look at what each person has contributed to the product. And hopefully that is what's been happening over the last few months between Hogan and Bischoff. They've got great minds. Let's not discount that fact. They've got great minds. They are looking out for number 1 and number 1, respectively. And Hogan, though, did say this, which was, I think, one of the most interesting things of the interview. He has a vested interest in how well TNA does. Meaning, I'm sure this deal is structured where the better the company is, the better off he is.
The better the ratings, the more money he gets. But let's also keep in mind, more than just money being involved, it's his ego.
Absolutely.
He's
Well,
now
there'll
put his
also be
name.
merchandise in there, too.
Oh, absolutely. But he's put his name now on a company.
A name he owns, by the way. Let's make that point. Hulk
Well,
Hogan, Hulkamania, and...
Eric Bischoff owns. still.
Well, correct, but it's
But-
not up in Titan Tower.
Right.
In a
But
file cabinet.
he's put his name on a company that has not done well in the ratings, that can barely fill a 1,200-seat building for a free pay-per-view. And now he's coming in there, and if it fails, well, then Hulk Hogan fails. So you know he's going to pull out every stop, everything. And Shaquille O'Neal's going to show up. Mr. T's going to show up.
So wait a minute. The Nasty
Yeah.
Boys are one of his bullets in his gun to get people to come?
Well, no, not that, but he's going to... Listen, the wrestling business is a bunch of backstabbers,
Duh.
okay? So he's going to surround himself with people that will have his back.
Correct.
And the Nasty Boys and Jimmy Hart. Not saying Greg Valentine's going to show up, but he's another one of them. Where he had and Beefcake, it's a very tight circle, and Hogan knows if he has those soldiers with him, he can go to anywhere he wants.
But the challenge, though, is how those soldiers are utilized. And I pray that, because I can't think of one, I don't think it's an intriguing storyline enough where seeing them on TV will help the product at all. But they can
Out of
certainly
those names that he just named
contribute.
off?
Yes, they can certainly contribute to the overall success of the business.
I think Knobs and Sags can help Rob Terry tremendously.
Why
Are
help
you
Rob Terry?
insane?
Why help Rob Terry?
I'm just saying they can help some of the younger guys get over.
I mean, you're making
Maybe
Damien
not-
happy by
maybe-
getting Rob Terry
maybe not in
elevated.
the ring, but just their presence, the theory behind a match, what things mean, what's important in a match.
But here's a question: what is TNA doing good right now? Before, without Hogan, If they were to continue going on the track they were going in, which keep in mind when I said that Hogan knew this deal's been in the works for months. They've done a lot of deliberate things over the last several weeks.
We've learned it's been the past 6 months they've been working on this.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
we didn't know this when it was happening either, but the necks that were being on the chopping block, the heads that were rolling for Hulk Hogan so he could make his way in.
To a degree. Because Russo's still there, and Hogan even said there's still some heat
By
there.
letting Jim Cornette and Road Dogg go, they didn't save that much more money. They weren't getting paid millions. And
No, I'm talking about the conflict between Hogan and, say, maybe a Jeff Jarrett.
well,
Or say, I mean, there's still heat, obviously, between Russo, but Russo, it sounds so bad to say, but Russo, who has done a better than you believe job as far as taking care of TNA, writing-wise. I mean, Russo gets crap on a daily basis. People dump on him on a daily basis.
He does a terrible job writing.
That's not necessarily true.
He does a terrible
Russo does
job writing.
In Dave Hero's opinion, but that's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Russo has done a better job than he's given credit for. Now, Russo is the one guy left, pretty much, that Hogan does. I mean, those two rub each other the wrong way. And I don't mean in a sexy way either. I mean, they just, obviously from Bash at the Beach 2000 and everything that built up to that.
Something? Hogan got paid from that.
Well,
That
obviously he got
lawsuit
paid.
sells. You know what,
But
there's
Russo
gonna be a little
buried
bit of heat.
Russo buried the name Hulk Hogan
But
right in the
there
middle
is
of
no
the ring.
burying
You know what,
that
though? Yeah. He didn't do it. He didn't bury it.
Here's
Yeah.
the thing. Look at Bret Hart, who obviously had much more of a situation with WWE than Hogan would have with Russo. He came back. There is never say never in the wrestling business. There
But
is
for that
there
time
are
leading up to
bygones
it.
that are bygones.
Sure.
Hogan
For
got
that
a
time-
huge settlement from WCW and Time Warner.
From that time leading up to it.
Well, Bischoff and WWE. I mean, name two people, Vince McMahon and Eric Bischoff, who had more disdain for each other.
Sure.
You do what's best for business, and all these people realize
At that time.
When you get petty and personal, that's when there are problems, and I think these are all professionals that won't get petty and personal.
Put it this way.
It was a business call that by Hogan and even Russo, I believe's own admission, was the wrong call to make, but it's back there.
Look
It's
at Bischoff and
almost
Flair.
10 years ago.
Look at Bischoff and Flair.
Yeah, that's smoothed over now.
You know, you watch. Hogan's going to come in. He's the new co-owner of TNA, and he's going to announce Ric Flair as the commissioner or general manager of TNA.
Hmm.
So you have Hogan and Flair there together.
Back to the question on the table. Without this deal, the things they've done going over the last few weeks, what is TNA doing correctly right now? What should they preserve going forward, Dave Hero?
It's a loaded
You got AJ
question.
Styles
It's a
as the
loaded
world
question.
champion. You've
Well,
got to push for
I mean,
Eric Young. You've got to
okay.
push for Hernandez.
You're-
You've got the British Invasion, beer money, all
You know
getting
what's funny?
pushes.
When they say they're pushing all the young guys, okay, you know that Hernandez is older than Rhino?
Oh, Young being relative to the old
viewing
guys.
audience. No, but Young being new to
New.
the audience.
New being.
I mean, I guess, by pushing the younger guys, that's a good thing because they're going to try to create new stars. But that all just got flushed. Because Hogan is not going to saddle up with a bunch of young guys.
Then there's the demise of TNA right there, if that's the case.
No, because if they do it right, if they use the guys the proper way to make them mean more, AJ working with Sting didn't elevate AJ at all. It made him look weak.
I don't know about
AJ's begging Sting to come back in the ring. Hey, come on, Sting, let's talk to the crowd and say goodbye. No, he's the champ, So far, that hasn't happened. Hulk Hogan is going to say, okay, Sting, you're going to work with AJ, or you're going to work with Daniels, or Joe, or whatever else, and it's going to mean something. This right now may help Sting. I've already heard rumors that Booker T is trying to come back in now with Hogan there. Because they know things are going to be run differently.
Yeah, but Booker T just, took his ball and went home.
Believe me, everyone comes back. Look at Sable. She showed back up. And she
accused people of pooping in her bag.
Yeah.
Dave Hero, your point made. Meathead, what is TNA doing right now? What should they preserve going forward now that Hulk Hogan is part of the mix?
It's funny that the younger guys are said to be getting pushes up against more established guys, but the young guys work their best matches with the other young guys.
Because they know each other.
Because they know each
trust
other. Exactly. Look at what Kevin Nash was just speaking about on Impact as far as, Wrestler X throwing Wrestler Y on his head. The younger guys aren't going to get the rub from Hogan that they're supposed to get because they're going to put on the better matches and I guess mean more, in your words, if they wrestle the other younger
But
guys.
to
So we're going to
that
have
point-
a WCW Nitro situation again where in hour one you'll have your Lucha Libres and your Cruiserweights wrestling each other in amazing matches. They'll all look great. but they'll never get the main event rub. You know, where you got the your cruiserweights and your lucha libres and your younger guys going up against your established group. I swear to God, if we see
Please don't do that.
if we see that formula again, where everybody's all the younger guys and the high flyers are stuck in hour 1 in the middle of hour 2, and then we have all the established main events at whatever, I won't watch.
Duly noted. Here's the thing. You need a nucleus. You need a core. You need the anchor, if you will. Just like the cruiserweights in WCW, nobody would know about them had it not been for the popularity WCW had at the time. So since they weren't in the main event, it doesn't matter. There's no place for them in the main event. There's only so much room at the top, and it's lonely at the top. You got to have the right stuff in the right spots to create an overall product that everybody wants to see. People aren't watching Raw for just John Cena, just Randy Orton.
That's not true.
Just Triple H, just Shawn Michaels. They're watching for the overall package, the overall product.
That's not necessarily true. I'm sorry. There are people that watch because there are kids that watch to watch John Cena. That's their guy. That's
Let me make that point again.
Watch.
They're not watching just to see John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
They're watching for the overall package, which includes John Cena. What TNA needs to do, what WWE has done, what WCW did, is build that package. And they've got the core of that package now in Hulk Hogan. They can still have the great matches between Samoa Joe and Daniels, the Machine Guns and Consequences Creed. That's part of the package. But to think that they're going to be in the main event or to fault Hulk Hogan if they aren't in the main event is the wrong thinking, in my opinion. What TNA needs to do is to continue to push why they're different. And it's not the six-sided ring. Hopefully that's one of the first things Hogan changes. They need to push the talent. They need to push the wrestling. And they need to get somebody in there on top who understands a successful wrestling company and understands the wrestling business. Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff are those two men.
And it's unfortunate for AJ Styles, too, who was just anointed the top face of the company. Well, that's gone, buddy.
No, he still is.
No, he's not. Hogan is the face of the company now.
It's a different level, though.
Hogan is the top.
No, Hogan is now he's the centerpiece. Doesn't mean he's a top baby face.
I didn't say top baby face. He's the top face. When you think
yeah,
TNA now, boom, Hogan.
I never thought of AJ as the face of TNA, though.
He was.
Kurt Angle wasn't?
No, Kurt Angle wasn't. It's AJ Styles.
All right.
TNA could have a problem on their hands, though. Hogan, as you said, Dave Hero, is in this, and he's got to protect his reputation. And there are those bad decisions that can be made.
Politics. My God.
How do they keep
don't.
a leash, whether it be short or long, on Hogan, which they have shown thus far they can't do?
Their company doesn't do a leash, for one.
Well, I think they're going to give Hogan as much rope as he needs to do what he's got to do.
Or to hang himself.
And a lot of people are just going to sit back and watch.
Hmm.
Like I said, Hogan's not going to book the storylines. He's going to oversee it. And I'm sure he's not going to let another Billy Kidman versus Hulk Hogan thing happen again.
Oh, that was terrible. Spring Stampede 2000.
And that's the stuff that Russo does.
Even worse, I was in the building for that.
So I'm just, Hogan's going to watch the booking. He's going to work on creating new stars. At the same time, he's going to be loyal to his buddies. He's going to be good to Kurt Angle because Kurt Angle has stroke in the company. He's going to be good to Nash, even though that I think could be interesting, how those two guys can play it out. I'm just looking forward to the first time they cross paths, maybe, in the locker room and see if there's some NWO fire there or whatnot. But
because Nash actually does. Nash is out for Nash, and there's nothing wrong with being out for yourself. But Nash actually is out for the younger guys.
I have a funny hunch that Kevin Nash had something to do with Hulk Hogan coming into TNA.
Sure, I don't doubt it at all. But I mean, my point being that Nash, it may seem like he doesn't. Like, it may have seemed like Flair didn't care about younger guys, but Flair wanted to work with younger guys. I mean, he did.
Well, here's the thing. Going in and losing a match to some new guy is not putting younger guys over.
Yeah,
Look at DX and Legacy. I mean, it's not. You can elevate people and they don't have to win or beat you in the ring. Just simply working with them.
So you're saying wins or losses actually still doesn't mean over? Because we had that argument here months ago.
Which is why there's no need to bring it up again today.
Don't get mad, Kanye.
But here's TNA's got to control Hogan though. They've got to not let him come in and just run the company. Granted, he's got vested interest, and that's smart if they did build a deal with him where company makes X amount of money, then he starts getting bonused. And
You're talking about incentive bonuses, like
in that
sports
way.
athletes.
Correct. And if they built it like that, that's great, and that's the way it should be, and that way sort of protected from him failing. But, I don't know exactly what step one is, and I don't know what Hogan goes in and does right away to make that
He
impact.
announces Ric Flair as the commissioner or GM of TNA.
I don't think
that's
go.
it. Yeah, I don't think that's it, Dave.
Ric Flair though,
would go. Ric Flair would go.
Let's look at this, and here's another example. Hogan stood in a WWE ring a couple years ago. This is the greatest company in the world. There's nothing better than WWE. He has lashed out against TNA before. Ric Flair has done the same thing. WCW was the greatest company in the world. WWE was the greatest company in the world.
And
exactly.
there's money to be made.
Exactly. So I don't I don't think that Flair won't come in, but I'm not convinced he will. But you've got all these people out there. You've got Ken Anderson. You've got Flair. You've got who knows who's next to leave WWE. There could be another exodus. Hogan had a big part of that when WCW turned itself around.
Yeah, he opened up a sieve, and that sieve leaked out. But then again, because
that was
of Hogan,
guaranteed money, and TNA does not pay many people guaranteed
and again,
money.
because of Hogan, though, that sieve went the other way as well. Because your Jerichos, your Malenkos, and those other guys, that just because of Hogan and that glass ceiling that was on them in the hour 1 and hour 2 of Nitro, they went back to WWF.
I'm not sure the first time we're going to see Hogan live in a TNA arena or in the Impact Zone, but it's got to be substantial. How do they do it, Dave Hero, to make it substantial?
Well, they better not do the parade down Disney again, first of all.
It would be Universal if they did.
That would be Universal. I mean,
Everyone loves a parade.
You watch, when Hogan's on Impact for the first time in the arena, it's going to be red and yellow everywhere. It's going to be
Graphics.
and they're just going
on
to build
screen.
it up. It won't be in the first hour. It'll be maybe halfway through, like in that, after the first hour or so.
Well, the
How do
money's-
they get there, though?
the money's-
What's leading up to that? Is it 2 weeks from now? Is it next week?
it's
Is it a month from now?
it's next week.
Because there's tapings again. This I believe that they're coming up
They're
with
taping
this
here Monday,
and Tuesday.
Dixie Carter's going to introduce Hulk Hogan. Say next week he's going to be here live in the Impact Zone, and there will be a line out past Universal, people waiting to get in to see Hulk
You going down to
Hogan.
catering?
But see, here's the thing. Hogan, like I said, doesn't have to wrestle. When he was on American Gladiators and people casually just went by the channels and they saw
Hulk
Hulk Hogan, they're going to stop to watch. VH1, Hogan knows best. They casually go, they see it, they're going to stop and watch. Same thing
He's a
will
brand.
happen. He is a brand.
He's a brand. That's very well
and
put.
that's exactly what's going to happen. People are going to be going through the channels on a Thursday night. Oh my God, look, there's Hulk Hogan. I'm going to stop and watch and see what happens.
That's very
Now,
well
the
placed.
argument to that could be Angle, Foley, Nash,
You know
Steiner.
what? And with
Booker T,
all due respect
Christian.
to every one of them, they are not Hulk
Correct.
Hogan.
And I think most guys know that too. I mean, again, that's where the humility comes in. I mean, you get your Nash, you get your Angle. They know that Hogan is kind of transcended what wrestling is, and I mean, Hogan is a name
Wrestling begins and ends with Hulkamania.
Meathead, how do they do it? First
They
time
start-
we see Hogan live on TNA programming. How do they do it?
I'm gonna feed off of Dave's as far as this following set of tapings. That's how Dixie Carter walks him in. Dixie Carter in the middle of the ring. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you now. But to get to that point, you need billboards. You need advertising. You need cross-pro. I mean, you need to
That's not going to happen.
You need to drop every bit of change you got as far as
Like
your
it's hot.
marketing.
They just did it
Marketing.
with Hulk Hogan.
Well, Hulk Hogan knows that that's what they need to do
But
too.
that
And if he
point-
was smart, they would
Well,
put billboards.
Hogan is
They would
smart.
do radio.
He-
Well, wait, Hogan is smart. He's already been on Larry King. He's
been on the
Good
talk
Morning
shows.
America. He was on Jimmy Kimmel. He's been on who's
Fallon.
that? Yeah, Fallon. He's on Bubba. I mean, he's the media
He's
blitz
everywhere.
all week. Yeah.
And here's the thing, too. A lot of the internet journalists out there have been saying that Hogan is barely mentioning TNA.
Which he is.
How much more barely is he mentioning it, though, than when he did the same things for WWE?
Hogan cares about Hogan first. That's
Mhm.
why he's always been successful.
I don't think it's any different than when he was in WWE, to be honest with you. Aside from the fact that many a time they only had him on to talk about WWE or wrestling, whether it be steroids, whether it be a
Right,
pay-per-view
it wasn't
coming
him.
up or
It
whatnot.
wasn't
This is
Hogan. It wasn't Hogan booking those. It was WWE booking those.
But all this Hogan did.
This
is
was
not
booked by
TNA,
Hogan,
man.
You
right.
watch,
This was
TNA
booked by
is
Hogan.
going to have a clip show for like 5 minutes saying
All this
he was
mainstream.
on this show, this show, this show, this show.
And they got to do that.
Oh, they have to.
They may have done it on. We're taping during Impact. Actually, we watched the first few minutes of it, and we'll watch the second hour. But
Roxy Fox was just on.
Alicia,
No. Oh no.
who the hell is Roxy Fox?
Desmond Wolfe. Is that it?
Roxy Fox.
Shows how important he's going to be.
This, no matter which way you look
Dave
at
Barry and another guy.
it, this, no matter which way you look at it, is a huge deal for TNA Wrestling. But TNA has to control this situation. And with Hogan being in charge, and a lot of people saying Hogan's not in
Wishful
charge,
thinking.
he's just going to be wrestling. I'm saying they should be. I'm not saying they will
Who's
be.
going to do it?
Dixie. The only one that Hogan answers
She
to
can't do it.
is Dixie. How can't she?
She doesn't
She's
understand.
never dealt with the Hulk Hogan before.
Well, and she doesn't. I mean, she understands the business, but she was not raised in the business. Vince McMahon raised in the business. That's why him and Hogan worked
Hulk
so well
Hogan is
together.
like a Jedi, okay? He will look at Dixie and say, "These are not the droids you're looking for," okay? And she's going to be like, "Okay, these are not the droids we're looking for."
But how do you tell a Hulk Hogan no? If you're TNA and you've tried almost everything, look at the people they brought in. Look at the things they've done over their 7-year existence. And really, it has not materialized into the successes they thought it would. If you're TNA, if you're Dixie Carter, what do you say no to Hogan for? What could he bring to
They
the
have
table?
to ride it out.
Exactly. They got to see what happens. They're taking a huge risk, by the way.
But you know what? That's okay because TNA is doing something. I mean, I'm not saying that WWE is not, but TNA really is working on
Well, I
this, and they're
guarantee you,
doing something.
There was a meeting at Titan Tower, or at the SmackDown tapings on Tuesday.
Yeah, when they make the announcement in Vinnie Mac's backyard at Madison Square Garden, his house, his building.
This is huge, folks. The coverage of this thing has been amazing. As Dave said, Hogan's been on the media trail. He was in Chicago just last night.
And this whole thing was well planned.
It was,
They knew when it was going to be announced.
listen, though, let's give some credit where credit's due. This was as brilliantly executed as anything
And
up to this point,
And
as
Damon-
anything WWE could have done as well.
And
they
very-
kept it a
very
secret. 5 or 6
tight-lipped.
people in the company knew. I had a extensive phone
You
conversation
didn't even
with,
know about it.
I had an extensive phone conversation about several things the day before this happened with a representative from TNA Wrestling, and let me tell you, he had no idea.
they were
No
so
clue.
they
You
were
know when people know
Sure.
something or something's buzzing.
Sure.
He had no idea. They masterfully played this.
They were tight-lipped about it the whole time, like they had chicken lips, just crushed, just nothing.
The question, though, is where do we go from here? What is next? This is worth giving a chance. And all of you naysayers out there, who say, Hogan's just going to do this, Hogan's just going to do that, you know what? You owe it to yourself as a fan to give it a chance. If you don't like the first thing they do with it, if you don't like the second thing they do with it, feel free to peel off. Do whatever. But straight away, this week's Impact rating is going to be substantial. Because while they've done this successfully, they've also done some things not so successfully. Firstly, the first thing we should have seen on Impact was not just an image of Hogan saying he has signed, he's going to be, they're going to show footage tonight. It should be all Hogan all 2 hours.
To be
They
honest
should
with
have
you,
talked
they should
about
have
in
had the
advance
music.
of Impact. They should have talked about TNA Impact on Spike TV Thursday night, 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
I can't think of ever hearing that. So there's some opportunities there, but this is certainly going to be the make or break move for TNA Wrestling.
And you know, TNA Wrestling, even if they would have mentioned, which they didn't, Spike, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock
Well, they
Central.
did to their followers.
Right,
But,
and that's the
it-
mistake, because Hogan is meant to go out to the people that aren't their followers.
Yeah, but at the same time, in today's society, and I initially said this was a mistake, you see Hogan on Kimmel talking about TNA. A lot of people probably, that's the first time they've heard about it, to be honest
And
with
they're
you.
thinking it's some women's wrestling organization.
Yeah.
Their name
Or
is a
they're
problem,
thinking
by the way.
Their
Their
sex.
name is a problem.
Right.
You Google TNA Wrestling, boom, you're there. You're in. You're
Right.
captured. You know all this stuff. You know when it's going to be on. You're
Right,
going to give it a
exactly.
try. This week's Impact rating is going to be a substantial indicator of how big
Next
this
week's
is.
Impact.
Next week with Hogan on it. The one that's advertised for Hogan to be on.
No. With the fact that this was announced on Tuesday and the buzz that's still out there and TNA broadcasting on Thursday, I think they're going to see a bump this Thursday. I think it may grow the following Thursday, but I think
Mhm.
they're going to see an uptick this week.
Sure. And again,
How big that uptick is going to tell you a
as
lot
we
as
were
well.
just as we were just talking about leading up to the Hogan being on Impact, you need to change the colors to red and gold. You need to have, the red and gold
Well,
Hummer. You need to have
But you got to be careful about that you don't alienate your stars that have started with them.
Oh, that's too late for that. It's way too late for that. Hogan is. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna pull it back a little bit. Dave Hero said, "Professional wrestling begins and ends with Hulkamania."
It does.
There you go.
But what I'm saying is, you don't want to offend and piss off the guys that are the workhorses and say, "Oh, great, now we're all going to get buried." There's a way of doing it where you don't step on everybody's toes.
Well, then
That's
you have the rest.
slippery
Then you
slope
have
that TNA is
then
on.
you have the rest of the program after Hogan is off the air. So do it right at the beginning of the show then. But lead into the show
You
and
can't do it
let
at the
it go.
show because then you lose all your viewers after that. You got to make them wait.
Let's go back
You're right.
to two moments. Let's go back to Hogan signing with WCW. Do either of you remember the specifics of how that happened? Was it the parade where the announcement happened? There was a press
The
conference as
announcement,
well, and then we rolled right into the Hogan Flair match.
I don't know if that's how it happened, but I know there was buzz on it on Saturday nights
But when did we
WCW.
first see Hogan? Was it at Bash
In
of
the
the Beach?
parade.
in the parade.
Okay. When he came back to WWE in 2003, Vince was in his chair and bringing back the
2001.
NWO.
2002. I'm sorry. It was the end of 2001, going into 2002.
Hogan, McMahon said he was bringing back the NWO. I don't think we saw Hogan until No Way Out. I don't think we saw him.
No, you didn't.
You didn't see
Until
Hogan
that
Nash
day.
or Hall until that day. I mean, it was built up, and then on February 17th or whatever it was, 2002, in the Bradley Center in Milwaukee, that's when you finally seen those three
It's scary
individuals.
that you know those dates.
Hey, August 10th, 1999 was a Raw that Damien was just talking about on, pre-production.
The buzz has been tremendous within the industry out there. Again, a lot of people are reporting a lot of false things out there. And there's a lot of
things have
information.
been leaked that shouldn't be being leaked.
And there's a lot of rumors out there that
Well-
are being taken as fact.
Well, that's the thing, way with any rumor.
Sure.
We've been guilty of it as well in the past. But you look at, if you're an employee in TNA and this is pretty cool. You can't control the message once it's out to everybody. And you can control who knows what, but the rumor mill will swirl, and I can imagine a lot of that coming from within TNA. Look at what happened on their Twitters and their Facebooks. You had Awesome Kong posting pictures of her with Hulk Hogan and meeting him and stuff. This is huge for them, and they had no idea. They are energized, and that is a sign right there. That alone,
Champagne and donuts, baby. Champagne and donuts.
that alone is going to make something very special for TNA Wrestling. Now, what does WWE do to react? I don't think anything. But they're certainly more aware now of TNA than they were in the past. And Hogan had a lot of great things to say about Vince McMahon. He said Vince McMahon is still the man in this business. He is still the smartest man, blah, 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 blah. Again, Hogan's very, very smart. Never underestimate the powers of Hogan.
And not to a negative, but Hogan is very calculating as well.
Well, you got
He's got every.
If you don't look out for
business,
yourself,
yeah.
who else is looking out for you? Nobody.
That's right.
So to that point, I'm very, very intrigued as to what happens now.
Stay tuned.
I don't know what's next. To be honest with you, I can't sit here
I'm
right now
telling
and say
you,
what's next.
Ric Flair is next.
Opinion.
Do you care to make this interesting?
Carl?
I'll
Dave?
make a wager, sure.
You know who actually has an interesting perspective on this? It's the Kaz. So let's go down to the 540 ESPN studios, the Kazspective, here on the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 on Time Warner Cable.
All right, thank you, Damien. Welcome to this week's Kazspective. The biggest news, maybe in wrestling history, that's debatable. Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff heading to TNA. What does it mean? To me, on the surface right away, it's big. It gives TNA, the boost they need. The ratings should be there. Bischoff there is going to also help ratings, but does it last? That's up to you, the fans. Right away, the ratings are going to be, it's going to be a nice little jump. But after that, what happens? What do they do with Hogan? Do they put him in the ring after a few months? Does Bischoff have some kind of in-ring stuff? Not wrestling, but from a general manager perspective. What does this mean for other wrestlers that are trying to move up? Or the superstars that are already there? Right away, it's a ratings boost, which is what TNA is looking for. My opinion is this: it's going to work right away, but after 6 months, it's not. Eric Bischoff will still be around. Hogan will be around, but he's got to get into the ring to make it work. And unfortunately, his body's not going to allow him to do that. They're going to have to be creative with it to make it work. I don't think it will. As far as WWE goes to it, they're going to obviously get light of it, but it's not going to have any impact for them. It's big for TNA right now, but 6 months from now, I don't think it's going to make a difference TNA just has to do other things to make it legit. That's this week's Cospective. Back to you, Damien and the guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Frank. And let's close it up, guys. Frank obviously had a lot of pointed
I
things
can't
to say
follow
about
Frank,
this.
just so you know. I'm
On Twitter?
done. No,
He's
no,
on
I'm
there.
done. I can't follow that.
In closing, Hulk Hogan, now a part of TNA. Eric Bischoff, now a part of TNA.
Ric
Who
Flair,
knows
soon
who's
to be
next
part of TNA.
coming into TNA? I think this is probably one of the single, this is the single biggest thing TNA Wrestling has ever done. And this is their make or break moment in this business. And keep in mind, you're going to get a spike now.
No pun intended.
Things are going to coast a little.
Pun intended.
And then you're going to see either a substantial climb over a course of time, or you're going to see a decline. The story's going to be not 2 weeks from now, not 3 weeks from now, not
It'll be months.
a month from now. The story's going to be 6 months to a year from now,
Mhm.
and we'll follow along and guide you through the process.
We'll let
very
you know.
much.
Hey, we'll let you know next year, Bound for Glory, how it's been.
Tuesday night, 10 o'clock p.m., the Pro Wrestling Report returns to 540 ESPN. You can listen live at pwrshow.com, and you can even get the podcast on iTunes for free. It's
And
number
the
one.
king of the 5 count.
It's the number one wrestling show on iTunes, Pro Wrestling Radio Show on iTunes. So go ahead and drop it to your iPod and get that show. And a lot of people listen to it during class and or work or whatever. Cal is yelling
Do
at
they
me
do
because we
this?
are 10 minutes over. And for the cause, for Dave Earl, and for the man they call me Dad, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you very much for tuning in to this week's edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time.